the quiet new arrival, the Academy's most dangerous secret. The morning sun of Kronos Prime cast long shadows across the Galactic Defense Academy's main courtyard. Hundreds of young beings from 47 different species gathered for the opening ceremony of the new training cycle. The air buzzed with excitement, nervousness, and the strange mixture of sounds that came from so many different types of vocal cords trying to communicate at once. Near the back of the assembly, a human stood quietly among the crowd. Alex Chen was not particularly tall compared to the towering Valorians who reached nearly 8 feet in height. Alex was not covered in the thick armor plating that made the Krenth look like walking fortresses. There were no crystalline formations growing from Alex's body like the beautiful Zephyrites possessed. In fact, to most observers, Alex looked remarkably ordinary, medium height, simple gray uniform, dark hair pulled back in a practical style, and a calm expression that gave away nothing. "Look at that one," whispered a Valorian cadet named Korthos to his companion. His golden eyes focused on Alex with barely concealed amusement. "Another human trying to play soldier. They break so easily. They probably struggled just to walk here." The human's dark eyes scanned the platform with what seemed like mild curiosity, nothing more. Instructor Tharn emerged from the central building and walked toward the stage with heavy, measured steps. He was Krenth, a species known throughout the galaxy as the finest warriors, the most disciplined soldiers, and the most demanding teachers. His armor-plated skin was deep gray, almost black, and covered with scars earned in countless battles. Each scar told a story of survival, of victory, of lessons learned in blood and fire. Tharn's eyes swept across the assembled cadets with the practiced gaze of someone who had evaluated thousands of young warriors. He could identify strengths and weaknesses at a glance. The Valorians stood proud, their natural confidence showing in every movement. The Zephyrites shimmered in the sunlight, their crystalline bodies reflecting light in beautiful patterns. The Krenth younglings stood in perfect formation, already demonstrating the discipline of their people. And then there were the others, species known more for intelligence than combat ability, for trade skills rather than warrior traditions, for diplomacy instead of warfare. Tharn's gaze passed over them with professional assessment. Some would find their place in support roles, others would wash out within weeks. His eyes found Alex. The human stood with acceptable posture but nothing exceptional. No visible weapons, no signs of enhanced biology, no impressive physical presence. Tharn's experience told him this one would likely struggle. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community. They had proven themselves capable in their own conflicts, certainly, but the Academy trained warriors to face threats from across the galaxy. That required something special. Tharn made a mental note and moved on. There were more promising candidates to evaluate. The ceremony began with Curator Vess taking the stage. Vess was ancient even by galactic standards, a being whose species had explored space before most others had discovered fire. Vess's form was difficult to describe, shifting slightly as if not entirely fixed in three-dimensional space. When Vess spoke, the words came not from a mouth but seemed to form directly in the minds of listeners, perfectly translated into each species' native language. "Welcome, cadets, to the Galactic Defense Academy." Vess's voice resonated with quiet authority. "You come from many worlds, many cultures, many traditions. Here, you will learn to defend not just your own people, but all people. The threats we face care nothing for borders or species. They will test every one of you. Most of you will fail. Some will discover they have more strength than they knew. Others will find their true calling lies elsewhere. Both outcomes have value. What matters is that you face the challenge with honesty and courage." Alex listened carefully to every word, occasionally glancing around at fellow cadets, but making no attempt to introduce themselves or make conversation. After the ceremony ended, cadets filed into the main academic building for room assignments and schedule distribution. Alex moved with the crowd, neither pushing forward nor lagging behind. In the processing line, a Zephyrite student turned around and extended a crystalline hand in greeting. "Hello, I am Zira of the 3rd Crystal Chorus." "You are human, yes." "Nice to meet you, Zira." "Oceans, we call them, very deep in some places." The human carried the data pad to the residential wing and found the assigned quarters, a small but functional room with a bed, desk, storage locker, and personal hygiene facility. Everything was designed to accommodate multiple species types with adjustable environmental controls. Alex set down a small travel bag, the only luggage brought, and sat on the edge of the bed. For a moment, the careful, neutral expression faded slightly. Alex's shoulders relaxed and a long, slow breath escaped. Then, just as quickly, the mask returned. Alex stood, unpacked a few personal items, and reviewed the class schedule on the data pad. First session tomorrow, Combat Fundamentals with Instructor Tharn. Alex's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes, something that might have been amusement or perhaps resignation. Elsewhere in the academy, in an office filled with security monitors and data streams, Curator Vess sat reviewing intake files. Most were routine: genetic information, educational background, psychological profiles, physical capabilities. Standard data collected on all new cadets. Vess opened Alex Chen's file and read through it carefully. Everything appeared normal, Earth-standard human genetics. Average physical test scores. Acceptable academic records from Earth's military preparation schools. No concerning psychological flags. No obvious enhancements or modifications. Vess closed the standard file and opened another, one encrypted with security protocols that few in the academy even knew existed. This file contained different information: intelligence reports, classified communications, and a single video file time-stamped from earlier that day. The video showed the Academy's main landing platform. A civilian transport ship had arrived carrying several new cadets, including Alex Chen. The footage showed Alex stepping off the transport, looking around with that same calm, unremarkable expression. But Vess watched what happened next very carefully. As Alex walked across the platform, a maintenance drone carrying heavy equipment malfunctioned. The equipment, easily several hundred pounds, fell directly toward where 3 other cadets stood talking, unaware of the danger. Alex was 20 feet away. The video showed Alex's head turn, assess, and react. What happened next lasted less than 2 seconds, but Vess played it back at slower speed. Alex moved, not running, not obviously rushing, but covering 20 feet in impossible time, reaching the falling equipment and deflecting it away from the other cadets with a casual push that shouldn't have been possible for someone of Alex's size and build. The equipment crashed harmlessly to the ground. The other cadets, startled by the noise, looked around in confusion. Alex was already walking away, expression unchanged, as if nothing unusual had occurred. Curator Vess stopped the video and sat in silence for a long moment. Then Vess reached for the communications panel and entered a code that connected to Earth's diplomatic mission. When the line opened, Vess spoke just 4 words. "Is that a problem?" Vess sealed Alex Chen's classified file and added new security protocols. Some secrets, Vess knew from long experience, had a way of revealing themselves when the time was right. Until then, all Vess could do was watch and wait. The first week at the Galactic Defense Academy passed in a blur of orientation sessions, physical assessments, and introductory classes. Alex Chen moved through each day with the same quiet, unremarkable presence that had marked the humans' arrival. In the mornings, Alex attended tactical theory classes. In the afternoons, physical training sessions tested strength, speed, and endurance. In the evenings, Alex studied alone in the residential wing while other cadets gathered in social groups. Instructor Tharn watched all his new students carefully during these first sessions. He noted which ones pushed themselves hard, which ones complained, which ones showed natural leadership, and which ones would likely drop out before the month ended. Alex fell into none of these categories. The human performed adequately, never excellent, never terrible, just solidly average in every measurable way. During the first combat simulation, Tharn divided the cadets into teams for a basic tactical exercise. Each team had to navigate through a holographic environment, avoid detection by enemy sensors, and reach an objective point. It was a simple test designed to evaluate basic decision-making and teamwork skills. Alex's team consisted of 5 members: Alex, Zira the Zephyrite, 2 Valorian cadets named Korthos and Senna, and a small insectoid being called Ticrix who specialized in technical systems. Korthos immediately assumed leadership of the group, which was typical for Valorians. They were a proud warrior species accustomed to command. "We move straight through the center," Korthos announced, studying the holographic map. Fast and direct, we are strong enough to handle any simulated enemies. Ticrix's antennae twitched nervously, but the small being said nothing. Zira looked uncertain, her crystalline body reflecting the blue light of the holographic display. Alex spoke up quietly. The center path has 3 sensor arrays. They will detect us. The objective requires stealth approach. If we move through there and then follow the maintenance corridor, we can reach the objective without triggering any alerts. Korthos dismissed the suggestion and led the team down the center path. Exactly as Alex had predicted, they triggered sensor alerts within minutes. The simulation ended in failure. Korthos blamed the faulty sensor placement and refused to acknowledge the mistake. Tharn made notes on his data pad. The Valorian showed typical overconfidence, nothing unusual there. But the human had demonstrated solid tactical thinking and had tried to help the team despite being ignored. That was worth noting. The second week brought hand-to-hand combat training. This was where species differences became most obvious. The heavily armored Krenth younglings could withstand tremendous impacts. The Valorians were naturally fast and aggressive. The Zephyrites used their crystalline structures in creative defensive ways. And the humans? Well, humans were generally considered fragile compared to most warrior species. When Tharn called for sparring partners, Alex politely declined to participate. "I'm still adjusting to the gravity here," Alex explained. "I don't want to risk injury this early in training." There was no point forcing a student into injury. Better to let them acclimate properly. But during a demonstration, something unusual happened. Tharn was showing a defensive technique when Korthos, eager to prove himself, launched an overly aggressive practice attack. The Valorian's momentum carried him off balance, and he stumbled directly toward where Alex stood observing from the side. What happened next lasted perhaps half a second. Alex's hand moved to intercept Korthos, not to block but to guide. The human's fingers touched the Valorian's shoulder and hip in a precise pattern, and somehow Korthos's momentum redirected smoothly. The large warrior found himself gently stabilized instead of crashing into Alex or falling to the ground. It looked almost accidental, as if Korthos had simply caught his own balance. But Tharn had been watching, and Tharn knew better. The placement of Alex's hands had been perfect. The timing had been exact. The amount of force applied had been precisely calculated to redirect without appearing to interfere. That level of muscle control and spatial awareness didn't come from being untrained. That came from years of practice, from drilling movements until they became pure reflex. Tharn said nothing, but he made another note on his private data pad. By the third week, the Academy's artificial intelligence system, Guardian, began compiling unusual data. Guardian monitored all cadets for health, safety, and performance tracking. The AI noticed patterns that organic observers might miss. Alex Chen's heart rate during stress tests never exceeded 90 beats per minute, even during maximum physical exertion. This was unusual for humans, whose cardiovascular systems typically showed much higher stress responses. Alex's sleep patterns were irregular. Most nights showed normal sleep cycles, but twice per week, the room sensors detected Alex remaining motionless but with brain activity suggesting full wakefulness. This could indicate meditation, but the duration, up to 6 hours, was extreme. Thermal imaging showed Alex's body temperature regulation was remarkably precise, never varying more than half a degree despite environmental changes that caused fluctuations in other cadets. Guardian flagged these anomalies and forwarded them to Curator Vess for review. The ancient being studied the data carefully but took no immediate action. Vess simply added the information to Alex's classified file and continued observing. Zira had become Alex's closest friend at the Academy, though friend might have been too strong a word. The Zephyrites sought out the humans' company during meals and study sessions, fascinated by Earth culture and grateful for Alex's patient answers to endless questions. "Tell me about your family," Zira asked one evening as they sat in the Academy's observation dome, watching the stars through the transparent ceiling. "I have parents and a younger brother," Alex replied. "Standard family structure for Earth. This seems very different from your family's path. Why not serve in Earth's own forces?" "We're new to the galactic community. We have much to learn about how others approach defense, strategy, and peacekeeping. The Academy offers the best opportunity for that education. But the Zephyrite didn't push. Everyone had their private thoughts. "What about your home?" Alex asked, redirecting the conversation. "You've mentioned the Crystal Chorus several times." "What is that?" Later that night, after Zira had returned to her own quarters, Alex stood alone in the observation dome. The human's reflection in the transparent ceiling showed that same calm, neutral expression. But Alex's eyes moved constantly, tracking patterns in the star field, noting the positions of orbital defense platforms, calculating angles and distances with unconscious precision. A soft chime indicated someone approaching. Alex's posture didn't change, but awareness shifted. Footsteps announced Instructor Tharn entering the dome. "You come here often," Tharn observed, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. "It's peaceful," Alex replied. "You avoid the combat training. I also recognize someone who is hiding. But I am watching." "Where did you learn that?" "The Academy will test you eventually, Chen. You understand this?" Alex remained, gazing at the stars with an expression that revealed nothing. In his office, Curator Vess reviewed the brief conversation captured by the dome's monitoring system. The ancient being's form shifted slightly, a sign of deep thought. Vess opened a communication channel and sent a simple message to Earth's diplomatic mission. "Your student is drawing attention. Is this acceptable?" Whatever game Earth was playing, it was far more subtle than most species attempted. And that, Vess reflected, might be the most dangerous thing of all. The quiet ones were always the most dangerous. The fourth week at the Galactic Defense Academy began like any other. Morning classes focused on strategic planning. Afternoon sessions involved equipment training and system operations. Evening hours were reserved for personal study and physical conditioning. The routine had become familiar to all cadets, a comfortable pattern that marked their gradual transformation from civilians into military professionals. Alex Chen followed this routine with the same quiet consistency that had characterized the previous weeks. In tactical classes, the human offered occasional insights that proved surprisingly accurate. In equipment training, Alex demonstrated competent but unremarkable skill. And in the evenings, Alex could usually be found in the observation dome or the library, studying alone or occasionally talking with Zira. Nobody expected the morning of day 23 to be different. The attack came at 8:47 hours, during the transition period between morning classes when cadets moved through the corridors and instructors prepared for the next session. The first sign of trouble was when the Academy's main power grid suddenly failed. Emergency lighting activated automatically, bathing everything in dim red illumination. Then the explosions started. 3 separate detonations rocked the western academic wing. The blasts were carefully placed to cause maximum confusion without bringing down the entire structure. Alarms shrieked throughout the facility. Guardian's voice echoed through emergency speakers. "Security breach. All cadets proceed to designated safe zones." "This is not a drill." Other cadets around Alex panicked, some running toward safe zones, others freezing in confusion. "Everyone move calmly to the eastern wing," Alex said clearly, voice cutting through the noise without shouting. "Don't run, stay together." Others ignored the human and scattered in different directions. Alex watched them go without expression, then turned and moved against the flow of traffic, heading toward the western wing where the explosions had originated. Zira, who had been nearby when the attack began, saw Alex moving the wrong direction. "Alex, the safe zone is this way." The attackers were a group called the Star Reapers, mercenaries and criminals who had operated in the outer systems for years. They had 12 members inside the Academy, all heavily armed and equipped with military-grade weapons. Their target was the research laboratory where the Academy developed new defensive technologies. But to reach it, they needed access codes and authorization, which meant taking hostages who could provide that information. In the faculty wing, Instructor Tharn had been reviewing student performance data when the explosions hit. The Krenth warrior immediately armed himself with a training weapon, less lethal than military arms but still effective, and moved to intercept the intruders. He found them in the main administration corridor, where they had already captured 6 cadets and 2 staff members. The leader of the Star Reapers was a scarred Valorian named Drek. He held a plasma rifle pointed at the hostages while his team secured the area. When Tharn appeared, Drek smiled coldly. "Instructor Tharn, your reputation precedes you. Please drop your weapon or I will be forced to harm these young students." But his instructor training recognized the truth. Any aggressive move would result in cadet deaths. Slowly, reluctantly, he lowered his weapon. "Smart choice," Drek said. "Now you're going to help us access the research laboratory." Alex's eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, every possible threat point with systematic precision. 3 Star Reapers had separated from the main group to secure the western approach and prevent any flanking attempts. They patrolled the damaged corridors, weapons ready, expecting to encounter fleeing students or perhaps Academy security forces. What they found instead was a single human walking toward them through the smoke. "Stop right there," one of the Reapers shouted, raising his weapon. "Hands where I can see them." The Reaper leader, a muscular being from a species known for their aggressive nature, laughed harshly. "I think we do. Turn around and walk back the way you came, human. We have no interest in killing unarmed children. And you should leave while you still can." What happened next would later be analyzed by Academy security systems, played back at different speeds, studied by military strategists from a dozen species. But in the moment, it simply happened too fast for the human eye to properly track. The Reaper reached for Alex's shoulder. Alex's left hand moved, not fast in an obvious way, but with perfect economy of motion. The hand intercepted the Reaper's wrist, twisted with precise application of leverage against the joint structure, and suddenly the Reaper's own weapon was falling from nerveless fingers. Alex's right hand caught it before it hit the ground. The second Reaper tried to aim his weapon. Alex moved forward, not a charge, not a rush, just 3 flowing steps that somehow put the human inside the Reaper's defensive range. An elbow strike to the solar plexus. A follow-up palm strike to the jaw. The Reaper dropped. The third Reaper, the leader, managed to fire. The energy bolt passed through the space where Alex had been a fraction of a second earlier. Alex had already moved, rolling under the shot and coming up directly beside the shooter. A strike to the weapon hand, a sweep of the leg. A controlled impact to the temple as the Reaper fell. All 3 attackers lay unconscious on the floor. Total elapsed time, 3.7 seconds. Alex stood over them, breathing normally, holding one of the captured weapons with professional competence. For just a moment, the human's expression had changed, cold, focused, calculating. The mask of the average student had fallen away completely. Then footsteps echoed in the corridor. Alex's head turned, and Zira emerged from behind a damaged wall section where she had been hiding. The Zephyrite's crystalline eyes were wide with shock. "Alex, what? How did you?" "Those were armed soldiers, and you just—" "Who are you?" Alex watched her go, then turned and moved deeper into the academy, toward where the main group of hostages was being held. In the administration corridor, Drek was growing impatient. He had Tharn and the other hostages secured, but something felt wrong. His team members from the Western Wing hadn't checked in. Communication systems should still be working on their secure channel, but there was only silence. "Team 2, report," he commanded into his communicator. "Nothing. Team 2, respond immediately." Drek's tactical instincts, honed through years of criminal operations, suddenly screamed warning. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. The lights in the corridor flickered, not the emergency lighting that remained steady. But shadows seemed to shift in ways that shouldn't be possible. Then Alex Chen stepped into view at the far end of the corridor. The human walked with calm, measured steps, carrying a captured weapon held with professional competence. Alex's expression was neutral, almost bored. But the eyes had changed. They held a cold certainty that made even the hardened mercenary leader hesitate. "Let them go," Alex said quietly. The voice carried clearly despite the distance. "This is your only chance." After that, I stopped being polite. Some insisted the human had used some kind of enhancement technology. Others claimed it was impossible for an organic being to move with such speed and precision. A few suggested the footage had been altered. But those who had been there, the hostages, Instructor Tharn, even the Star Reapers who survived, all told the same story. Alex covered the 20 meters of corridor in under 2 seconds. The plasma rifle discharged, but the bolt hit empty air. Alex was already behind Drek, one hand controlling the weapon arm, the other delivering a precise strike to the nerve cluster at the base of the Valorian's neck. Drek collapsed instantly. The other Reapers tried to react. They were trained soldiers, experienced fighters. It made no difference. Alex moved through them like wind through grass, there and not there, striking with calculated precision, never using more force than necessary. Weapons were removed from hands. Attackers were rendered unconscious with targeted strikes. Not one shot was fired. Not one hostage was harmed. When it ended, all 12 Star Reapers lay unconscious or disabled. Alex stood in the center of the corridor, breathing slightly heavier than normal but otherwise appearing calm and controlled. The hostages stared in absolute silence. Instructor Tharn rose slowly to his feet, his eyes locked on the human student. "Chen, what are you?" Someone who wasn't supposed to be noticed. Academy security teams swept every corridor, every room, every possible hiding place to ensure no additional threats remained. Medical teams treated the injured, mostly minor wounds from the initial explosions. The Star Reapers were secured in holding cells, awaiting transfer to proper detention facilities. And throughout it all, Alex Chen sat quietly in a small conference room, waiting. Instructor Tharn stood guard outside the door. The Krenth warrior had not spoken since the incident ended, but his eyes remained fixed on the entrance as if he expected the human inside to somehow vanish. The other instructors who passed by asked questions, but Tharn simply shook his head. He had no answers to give. Finally, as the artificial evening cycle began, Curator Vess arrived. The ancient being moved with slow, deliberate grace, acknowledging Tharn with a subtle gesture before entering the conference room. The door sealed behind Vess with a soft hiss. Alex stood when Vess entered, showing appropriate respect. "Curator." Vess settled into a chair across the table, the being's form shifting slightly as it adjusted to the furniture. "You saved many lives today," Vess began. "I did what was necessary," Alex replied calmly. "Indeed. And in doing so, you revealed considerably more than was intended." Vess's presence seemed to fill the room despite the being's modest physical size. "I believe we are past the point of pretense, Cadet Chen. Or should I use a different title?" "No," Alex admitted, "not complete. Privacy protocols active. We are trained observers and protectors, sent to various institutions and locations throughout the galaxy. We observe, yes. We learn about other cultures, other training methods, other ways of thinking about defense and security. But we also protect when necessary. We exist to build understanding, not gather secrets. Your combat abilities are far beyond what any standard human should possess. Physical conditioning, martial arts from multiple human cultures, tactical analysis, cultural studies, language acquisition, and psychological preparation. The training takes years. It's designed to prepare us for situations exactly like today. Military academies, diplomatic missions, trade centers, research facilities. Anywhere Earth believes we can learn and, if necessary, help. To learn how the Academy trains warriors from multiple species to work together. To understand galactic military doctrine. To observe how different cultures approach concepts like honor, duty, and sacrifice. And to be ready, if needed, to protect people, regardless of their species. Yes, we serve people, not objectives. Humans do the opposite. You send your most capable warriors into the galaxy and instruct them to appear average. We don't want the galaxy to fear humanity. We want to be trusted friends and reliable allies. That requires a different approach. When people need help, we help. When there's genuine danger, we act. But we don't seek glory or recognition. We just do what's necessary and then return to being quiet students or quiet diplomats or quiet traitors. Vess made a gesture and it opened to reveal Instructor Tharn, along with several senior Academy officials. They entered and took seats around the conference table. Each of them studied Alex with varying expressions: curiosity, suspicion, respect, concern. Commandant Vrix, the head of Academy security, spoke first. His species was known for direct communication. "Cadet Chen, you single-handedly neutralized 12 armed hostiles without killing any of them. Your combat performance exceeds that of most graduates from this academy. Yet your official records show no advanced combat training. This creates significant concerns. What is Earth's purpose in placing operatives here?" Military tactics, diplomatic protocols, cultural practices, technological approaches. In all these areas, we are students. But we also recognized a problem. If we sent obvious military observers, other species would be guarded around them. They would show us only what they wanted us to see. We would learn the official version of things, not the truth. So we developed a different approach. We send people trained to blend in, to be accepted as regular students or workers or visitors. That way, we learn how things really work, not how they're presented in formal briefings. You deceived us. I learned that Instructor Tharn makes assumptions about students based on their species, but is willing to change those assumptions when proven wrong. I learned that Valorian cadets have cultural honor codes that sometimes conflict with tactical efficiency. I learned that Zephrites value friendship and connection even in military environments. These insights are valuable precisely because they're authentic. But I hope my time here as an open student can continue. I still have much to learn from all of you. How many operatives like you has Earth placed throughout the galaxy? And what is to stop you from using this network for military intelligence or coordinated action? But I can tell you our governing principles. First, we never gather intelligence about military capabilities or weaknesses. That's prohibited. Second, we never coordinate with each other for operational purposes. Each of us operates independently. Third, we only reveal our abilities in genuine emergencies when lives are at stake. And fourth, we are under strict orders never to take offensive action, only defensive. Why should we believe these limitations are real? Cooperation benefits everyone. We send quiet core members out not to prepare for conquest, but to prepare for partnership. We want to understand you so we can work with you effectively when challenges arise. But what happens when Earth's interests conflict with another species' interests? It exists to prevent conflicts from happening in the first place by building genuine understanding and trust. I have seen many approaches to power, to diplomacy, to military strength. Earth's approach is unusual, perhaps unique. Vess paused. I am inclined to believe you, Alex Chen, but belief must be verified. What verification do you need? I will also request that Earth provide transparency about the scope and purpose of this program to Academy leadership. I saw your movement, your precision. You chose not to kill. Killing should always be the last option, not the first one. Questions were asked and answered. Concerns were raised and addressed. Finally, Curator Vess declared the initial session complete. You will remain at the Academy while we verify your information and determine the appropriate response, Vess told Alex. You will not attend regular classes during this period, but you will have access to the library and training facilities. Instructor Tharn will serve as your liaison. The Krenth warrior studied the human for a long moment. You held back during all our combat sessions, Tharn said. Yes, sir. Actually, pretending to be weak is one of the hardest parts of the training. It goes against every instinct. To see what a human warrior can truly do. The mask of casual friendliness was gone now, replaced by thoughtful contemplation. The human had known this moment might come, had trained for it, had accepted it as a possibility from the beginning. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it emotionally were different things. Alex's mission as a covert observer was over. What came next was uncertain. Part 5, A New Understanding. During that time, Alex remained in a state of suspended existence. Not quite a prisoner, not quite a student, something undefined in between. The human spent mornings in the training facility, afternoons in the library, and evenings in the observation dome watching the stars. Zira came to visit on the second day. The Zephrite stood in the doorway of Alex's quarters, her crystalline form reflecting the corridor lights in nervous patterns. "May I come in?" she asked hesitantly. "Of course," Alex replied, gesturing to a chair. "I'm glad you came. About who you really are. Not about the things that mattered. Our conversations about your home, about the Crystal Chorus, about your dreams of becoming a tactical coordinator. I wasn't pretending to care about those things. I genuinely cared. I still do. Anything that doesn't compromise operational security for Earth or endanger other quiet core members. I'll answer honestly. I wasn't assigned to befriend anyone specifically. You approached me that first day, remember? You wanted to talk about Earth and oceans. I enjoyed that conversation. I enjoyed your curiosity, your enthusiasm, your kindness. Every conversation we had after that, I chose to have because I liked spending time with you. That happened because we genuinely liked each other. That was real. I deceived you about my training and my purpose here. That's legitimate reason for hurt and anger. I won't blame you if you decide our friendship can't continue. Why send trained warriors pretending to be students? It's frustrating. But real learning happens when you see how things actually work, including the mistakes and the struggles. To see that, we needed to be accepted as equals, not treated as official observers. We observe, Alex corrected gently. There's a difference. Spies gather secrets to gain advantage. We observe to gain understanding. I didn't report military capabilities or defensive weaknesses. I reported things like how different species communicate during stress, how honor codes affect tactical decisions, how friendship forms across cultural boundaries. Information that helps Earth work better with others, not information that could be used against anyone. But I can tell you this, every single one of them is under the same rules I follow. Observe, learn, help when necessary, never cause harm, never gather military intelligence, never coordinate for operational purposes. We're not a secret army. We're students who are also trained to protect people if needed. Years of training and good teachers. Humans have been developing martial arts for thousands of years. We just adapted those traditional skills for galactic contexts. When Zira finally left, she paused at the door and looked back. Alex, I'm still processing everything, but I do believe you about our friendship being real, and I'm glad you were here when we needed you. That means a lot. Ambassador, Alex said respectfully, acknowledging the projection with a slight bow. Operative Chen, Ambassador Akoy replied with a warm smile. Or should I say Cadet Chen? I understand you've had an eventful few weeks. Ambassador Akoy has provided extensive documentation about Earth's Quiet Core program. She has also agreed to answer questions from Academy leadership. We have spent considerable time reviewing this information and discussing its implications. The documentation confirms everything you told us, Chen. Earth has indeed deployed hundreds of observers throughout the galaxy, all operating under strict protocols. We have also verified that none of them have engaged in traditional espionage activities. The program was designed to operate discreetly precisely because openness would have defeated its purpose. However, now that it's been exposed, we're committed to being fully transparent with trusted institutions like the Academy. Vess looked at Alex, then at the ambassador's projection. We have decided that Operative Chen may remain at the Academy, not as a covert observer, but as an open student with acknowledged special training. Chen will continue regular studies, but will also assist with advanced tactical instruction and cross-cultural training programs. First, you will provide no reports to Earth about Academy operations or capabilities. Second, you will be available for consultation on human combat techniques and psychological approaches. Third, you will serve as a liaison helping other species understand human perspectives on defense and cooperation. We hope this can become a model for how the Quiet Core integrates with other institutions once exposed. Instructor Tharn remained, approaching Alex with purpose. Tomorrow morning, Private Training Room 7, Tharn said. You promise to show me what you can really do. I am eager to learn human techniques. They watched as Tharn and Alex entered, both wearing simple training clothes. Show me, Tharn said simply. What followed was not a competition, but a demonstration. Alex moved through various martial arts forms, fluid movements from Chinese traditions, powerful strikes from Korean systems, grappling techniques from Japanese arts, defensive tactics from Filipino methods. Each style showed different philosophies, different approaches to the same fundamental problems of combat. Tharn absorbed it all with intense focus, occasionally asking questions or requesting slower demonstrations. He began to understand something profound. Humans had not developed one way of fighting but hundreds, each adapted to different situations and purposes. Your species has remarkable diversity in approach, Tharn observed during a break. We had thousands of cultures develop independently on Earth, Alex explained. Each created their own martial traditions. When we joined the galactic community, we studied all of them and adapted the best elements for different contexts. Every technique you've shown prioritizes control over destruction. I think I begin to understand why Earth sends quiet observers rather than loud warriors. Your people believe that the strongest weapon is wisdom, not force. Alex attended classes openly now, no longer pretending to be less capable than reality. Other cadets treated the human with mixture of respect, curiosity, and occasional wariness. Some sought Alex out for training advice. Others kept their distance. Zira remained a close friend, their relationship strengthened rather than broken by the truth. She often joined Alex in the observation dome during evening hours. "Do you think other species will start their own programs like the Quiet Core?" Zira asked one night. "Maybe," Alex said thoughtfully. "Though I hope they'll just be more open with each other from the beginning. The ideal situation is where the Quiet Core becomes unnecessary because everyone trusts each other enough to share honestly. But humans have learned that optimism combined with preparation leads to better outcomes than cynicism combined with fear." Others requested information about how to identify Quiet Core members. Earth's response was consistent. The operatives existed to help, not to harm, and attempting to identify them was unnecessary and counterproductive. A few months after the incident, Curator Vess invited Alex to the private office once more. "I have been thinking about your presence here," Vess said, "about what it represents. That perhaps humanity understands something other species have forgotten. True strength does not need constant demonstration. The warrior who proves themselves in every small encounter wastes energy that should be reserved for genuine threats. The civilization that announces its power constantly creates unnecessary conflicts. We had centuries of conflict on Earth before we understood cooperation worked better than competition. But it may be more effective than any military alliance or diplomatic treaty. I suspect humanity will have significant influence on galactic culture in the coming decades. Whether you seek it or not." The human returned to Earth, reported on the experience, and was soon assigned to another posting, this time openly as a cultural liaison rather than a covert observer. But the Academy never forgot the quiet new arrival who had been their most dangerous secret. And throughout the galaxy, in academies and diplomatic missions, in trade centers and research facilities, other quiet humans continued their work, observing, learning, protecting when necessary, and slowly, patiently, building the trust that would one day make their own existence. Unnecessary, because that was the true goal all along, not to prove humanity's strength, but to create a galaxy where strength no longer needed to be proven. The quiet ones were indeed the most dangerous to the old ways of thinking, to assumptions about power, to the belief that only loud demonstrations of capability mattered.